Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our first ever attempt at a podcast.
hmm
Well, in 2024, um, I feel randomly very nervous, like I'm about to perform. So let's not
Yeah,
make it about a performance. I don't know if you're feeling that.
I'm feeling completely nervous and uncomfortable and strange,
Yes.
but
And
that's okay as well.
I think that's okay. So I think we have to introduce ourselves. We do. So my name is Laura Anderson, and I am a person that is sitting here right now. I don't know how to define myself at the moment, so that's why I guess I froze there. I am someone sitting here without a job.
hmm
So I thought, why not better to start a podcast?
Yeah,
And why not best to start it with one of my best friends in the world, Gemma Nicol,
that's
who
me.
who is also in a different state.
That's
And
right.
so
Otherwise,
this is
we'd be together, wouldn't
yeah.
we, doing
And we would
this?
probably be sitting on like two couches and trying to look like all those other people that do podcasts. But instead, where I'm in Melbourne and
With a washed out glaze, and I'm in Sydney with a purple haze. I don't
there
know.
you go, washed out glaze and a purple haze.
That's it.
Um,
And we're
now,
one idea too.
But one idea I think is in my mind, it was something very different to what it actually is, but it's the name of this podcast, and I want to take it over to you, Gemma, because you were the one that came up with this amazing name. Why did you come up with it?
Okay, thank you so much for introducing us for the first ever time, Laura Anderson.
Hopefully I get
Um,
better at it too. So that was just take one.
this is a complete work in progress. I think that's the whole point. We are a complete work in progress. We're here not knowing what the hell we're doing, but we're giving it a red hot go. The one idea honestly came as I was thinking about we sort of had talked about, because we have done a podcast in the past. We attempted to do one, what, like 7 years ago or something, 8 years
8 years
ago.
ago.
And you came to me and wanted to give it another go. And I said yes. And when in the process of thinking about it, one idea came to me. It was the first thing that actually came to me, and it's sort of it's covers a lot of ground. Really, it's a funny little play on one idea. If you hadn't caught up to that part yet.
Some
Um,
people might not have, because like I don't think that way. I literally think in pictures. So I just see
yeah,
a
right. A
deer
one-eyed
with
deer.
one eye. Yeah.
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 And I just thought in in our discussions about what we wanted to create this podcast about, our general, I guess, way of being, and when we come together in discussions, we've known each other probably about 20 years now. And we are both people who like to get together and we dive straight deep into all sorts of ideas, all sorts of concepts, all sorts of feelings and thoughts about whether it be the universe or it's parenting or it's careers or anything. We're always sort of having these conversations. But essentially, it all starts with one idea. The creation started with one idea. Obviously, I don't know what exactly happened with creation, but it's just the things that are always, everything is born from that one thought, that first initial um, idea and thought.
Would-
So it was sort of go.
Yeah, which is everything comes from that one moment, whether it's that, the idea of doing this podcast, for example, it's that thought, and then that thought, we spoke through that thought, we spoke through the fact that we've tried it again, we've spoken through, what we want to get out of it, then it creates an idea,
That's
ultimately.
it.
And so I guess we're so curious by nature. I
Mm,
think that's something that, when you and I ever get together and we have a conversation, we can go down so many rabbit holes and tangents, but ultimately it's through curiosity
yeah.
that is getting us to these places. And starting off with one thought or one concept could lead us somewhere totally different.
Yeah.
And they've always inspired and energized us, these conversations.
Yeah.
And also, we want to pretty much be selfish and have a platform to interview
That's right.
people so
Yeah.
we can get these thoughts out, and whether it's subject matter experts or whether it's we get focusing on a different theme, we're going to go all over the place. As you said, we're going to go to spirituality, we might go to parenting, we're going to go to health,
Yeah.
fitness,
Yeah.
fame, pop culture, whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
that you know, everything, I guess, has an interest to us from a certain lens as well. And I think that we have a different lens potentially in how we see things. But even if no one else listens to these podcasts, this is also for our own personal interest as well. And hopefully those two things align up.
That's right. And the other part of it is just that the idea that we're all one. I think that's quite poignant as well. That we are all one collectively, that I am you and you and me and the stranger in the street or in the supermarket, that we're all connected as one. And that, but on this life, in this earth, we're all kind of experiencing it through our own lens as well. And so it's about sharing those lenses, being able to look through another person's lens, because I know for me personally, being able to look through someone else's eyes or wear their shoes has always really helped me in enriching what it is to me and what it is to connect with other people. And I think I absolutely, we really want to hear from experts that know specifically about certain areas that we haven't done the study and the research in. But we also want to talk to people who are experts on being them, whoever they are and whatever they bring. And that could be an expert of being on the street. It could be an expert of anything. But just to have another lens and to discuss those ideas, also to be really unfiltered and not feel, especially I think in Australia, that this need to sort of not upset the apple cart a little bit. I think that, wanting to really ask tricky questions or talk about uncomfortable topics and go there, because I think in doing so, we sort of scratch the itch of so many people's wondering that maybe they don't feel comfortable to ask or just want to explore those ideas but don't have access to that too.
Back to exactly, yes. But back to what you're saying around that we are all one. So back to the one idea, but we're all one, we're all a collective. I have heard that, I understand that intellectually. And I think for me to really understand that and feel that, I don't know if a lot of people actually even feel that. I don't know if a lot of people understand that we are one, and the more that we understand each other, the more we understand ourselves. But I know that for me to feel that deeper, it's by, as you said, finding an expert in any element of life, and hearing from different perspectives of life and different upbringings. And for me personally, when I hear someone's story, that's when I feel that feeling of being connected as one. I see myself in that person's story, or if I don't see myself, I have empathy for that story, or that story is inspirational, or whatever it is. There is something that there's, I guess, like a transaction that comes from that. And it can just be with you, Gemma, that I feel that. But it can be with a stranger as well. And I think that's something we really, really want to explore, and I guess just strengthen that theory or belief that we are all one. So I think, but for me, it's, I need to feel that in a real sense by understanding people deeper, and as you said, putting those lenses on of other people.
And I think doing it really imperfectly as well. Like, I think for us, this is both, you'll get to know us throughout our discussions, and we're going to take time next to, I'm going to talk to Laura about her, and she's going to talk to me about me. I think that we're attempting to keep it really simple, in that we haven't overproduced anything. Clearly, look at the shading,
The
look at the
filters,
outfits,
you mean?
yeah, and so we hope that in by sharing this, we're going down this journey with you. If anyone chooses to listen, if one person chooses to listen, then we're so grateful and to be on this little journey with you. And we're very imperfect, but we're trying to keep it just to that one idea, where we don't try and overdo things or make it to be polished.
Absolutely.
As I say this, that's a very unpolished thing. My sister's trying to call me on my phone, and it's completely interrupted
But they can't hear it, so that's okay. It's
the
just
image, but I've lost the image of you and me.
Oh, well, I
I've
can't.
gone.
I can still
Oh,
see you though.
there.
So you're back.
We're back.
So then, okay, let's go to the imperfectness of what actually happened, and we've already said, but I think it's interesting to explore a little bit, maybe for our own benefit. But we actually did attempt this. We've actually sat down before and started a podcast. I believe we have 5 episodes. I believe we do.
Okay, where they are, who knows?
If you find them, and if this ever becomes successful, you can listen to them. But they were there. They're somewhere in the mix. And again, I think 8 years earlier, that curiosity was still there. Like nothing's changed in our relationship, in the sense that we were having these great conversations, and podcasts weren't even really a thing then. Like there were a few people. There obviously were podcasts out, but there was very few podcasts to what they are now.
I know, we were totally cool originally.
We were ahead of our time. I genuinely believe that. But this is a common theme for, I guess, most people, but for us, is that I don't know what you remember, but I do remember it very clearly, is that we had all this excitement and we're like, yes, we're going to do this. And I remember you coming over to my house, and I think we were just talking into the Mac computer, and we had our episodes and we had our questions all lined up. And I think each episode we did, we just got more and more scared, and more self-doubt crept in, and not believing in ourselves. And ultimately, ultimately for me in that moment, it was like, who do we think we are, really?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of, I don't know, egomaniacs are we? To think that we deserve to put a podcast out there. And so therefore we won't. And let's just shut that idea down. And that was a funny little idea that we had. And so let's never really talk about it again. Because
which sounds very me. It actually doesn't sound very you.
No,
so
but it was. It really was.
Probably bled.
No. We might have bled onto each other a little bit, but no, I remember the feelings for me, because it was a significant time again for me at that moment, and there was a lot happening for me. So I also remember it probably for a similar reason, wanting to do it, but I just remember there was no way we were ever going to put them out. There is no way. Because it was embarrassing. Again, who do you think you are? All the self-talk comes in, the negative self-talk. And that ultimately won. And then flash forward, I never really thought about it again, but when podcasts started getting big, I was like, imagine if we'd actually done that. What could that have actually have been? I probably have had that thought a few times. But 8 years later, I just don't care now. As in, I'm still going to have all those feelings, I'm sure. And I'm still going to feel like shit. And I'm still going to feel like, who are we to put a podcast out there? And who's even going to listen to it? And if anyone listens to it, you don't know how grateful we're ever going to be. Seriously. But I think there are more reasons behind it now, and maybe they were there, but they mean more now. And so maybe that's like a little segue of me asking you for a second
Yes.
time.
Yeah, that's what I
Like,
was going to put it into.
yeah,
You called me and said, actually, oh no, you text me. Did you text me or call me?
I think I might have, I can't remember which one I did, but one of them was like knee jerk. Like, I just need to tell you right this minute because I was
Yeah,
having an epiphany. So
yeah,
it might have been a text. And then I called you.
yeah.
And I guess for me, flash 8 years later, amazing things have happened, crazy things have happened. I've had 2 kids in there. I've had successful careers and all sorts of things. But I was in really like just ultimate burnout. A few months ago, I was parenting 2 kids, one quite young child, son, wasn't sleeping, sleep deprivation, also having to work a really full on job, a corporate job, and nothing. I felt like I couldn't do anything right at that moment. There was no joy in my life. It was just the mundane routine.
Mm,
I'm also a creative by nature, and I wasn't doing anything creative.
mm,
And I ultimately had I guess, a breakdown, a nervous breakdown, and I had to stop, take stock, look at everything. And I looked around and was like, fuck, there's nothing really fun in my life. There's
mm.
nothing really bringing me joy. That, I mean, I love my children, I love my husband, I love them, but there wasn't a feeling of creation and joy that was just
Yeah,
my own.
yeah.
And the first thing that came into my head, because as I said, I'm also a creative and I'm actually a dancer, wasn't about dancing, was like, I just want to do a podcast with you because
Mm,
I just want, I just want to talk
yeah.
and get all this stuff that's out of my head just out to someone that's listening that I love and care for so much.
Mm,
And I want to listen to people. I want to interview people. I want to know more. I want to like what's the word, like spark the curiosity, or it's almost like feed the curiosity. I want to
yeah,
feed it.
yeah.
um and like the thing that was calling me in this moment was the podcast. And so
Yeah.
that's why I think, can't remember what happened that day, why I knee jerked it so fast. Potentially I resigned. or
I think it
potent-
was that you had resigned.
yeah,
Yeah.
I potentially resigned that day. um and that was a very hard call for me because the job was really full on, but I really loved some of the people there. And obviously it was paying my wage and it was paying
Mm,
my way to live and supporting my family and all those things. But I actually just couldn't hold on anymore. And if I'd stayed in that job, I was just going to make myself physically sick.
yeah.
Um, and just even saying that, sending that message and then having that call already released something for me,
Mm,
already gave me a feeling of like, I can breathe.
yeah.
Um, and what did you say?
I said, yeah. Yeah. Why did I say yeah? Um, so I guess backstory for me. When we did that, I have a terrible memory, but going back to our original time when we were doing the podcast, I remember meeting up with you and sitting in that beautiful little Q, wasn't it? Q?
Yeah.
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 And making those recordings with you. I mean, it was so much fun to do it. It was so much fun to sit there and talk with you because I already like having conversations about all sorts of things with you, and that's always been something I've enjoyed. But yeah, I have always had a really interesting relationship with my creative side or with my ideas. That I've lived a fairly ordinary life, with this feeling of um, the extraordinary is just there.
Mm.
And I I've always had these ideas that have come into my head about creating something, making something, doing something. Most of them are to do with other people. Most of them are about talking with other people, whether it's a lot of it's around doing documentaries or interviewing people or vox popping in the street and all of these kinds of different ideas. Because for me, that connection with other people, talking to other people, has always been so extremely stimulating for me. Probably because of the way I was brought up, probably because of my genetics and all sorts of things. But the relationship with seeing out those things has been really well, I've always just wanted to pull out. My self-esteem has always told me, or whatever it is, my inner critic has always been so loud and really wanted to, and so judgmental and so much shame and embarrassment around putting myself out there in what I feel burns inside of me. It's just always been there for so long. However, that's just the way my mind has always kind of gone. And I have in the last, what's different from 8 years ago to now is that I still struggle with that. However, I'm getting to know a different side of myself as well at the moment. I'm getting to know a different philosophy. I grew up as a Christian, like a Pentecostal worship, praise Jesus kind of Christian. And now in my life, I left that behind when I was about 18 and then have sort of been agnostic and non-practicing of anything really. And in the last probably year, I've been exploring what possibly spirituality could be there for me. And so in doing that, which I'm sure we'll talk about more as the podcast days roll on, but for me it's about following that, what is inside of me, that alignment to who I am, trusting that my the inner fire in me, even if it doesn't mean anyone listens to this or it's successful in inverted commas, that I am actually just following the little bliss that lives inside of me, that I'm not shaming it anymore, that I'm not denying it its space to move and express and free itself. And that for me as a very ordinary person feels really great because I really relate to so many people in that I was never born with this great passion and desire to achieve certain things. You know, you hear these inspirational stories of people coming out of the absolute poverty into great success, or you hear these people who, you know, always knew that they wanted to da 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 da, and so then they did that. I could never understand that, and I always felt so just sort of stuck in the humdrum of what it is to be in this society, into life, into Western society, particularly Australian society. Very much get a nursing job, a police officer. There's certain like okay, good, fine jobs, and there's all this structure, there's all this pressure around things, and I always felt so intimidated by normal life, by normal things. And so I feel like it's time to just listen to those things, to follow that bliss. And for you asking me, all of the thoughts still come into my head of like why I shouldn't and what you know, and wanting to overanalyze it. But at the end of the day, I think it's just saying yes to those things, to that little flicker.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that flicker, you know, and I believe it was that flicker 8 years ago as well.
Oh, of
I
course.
believe it was the same flicker.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, I don't know if it's age, if it's experience, if it's, I don't know what it is, but it's like the flicker for me now is getting clearer of like, this is something that it does, as you said, doesn't matter what the outcome is.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't matter if anyone listens to this, if a million people listen to this,
Yeah.
because it's something that is calling us to do.
Yeah.
and it's something that it brings joy, it brings creativity, it brings stimulation, it brings energy, it brings all
Yeah.
these things, that's enough to do it. That's enough of a reason to do it.
Absolutely.
And I don't yeah, that calling has always been there in many things, but I think I've got a lot of, for me, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of
Mm.
other noise, which um, still don't really know what that is. Um, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's programming. I actually don't know, but there's just a lot going on in my brain. So I'll get the flicker with 1,000 other thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, but as I'm getting older, the flicker is becoming more of a light, and the noise
Mm.
is becoming more of like, that's just the noise. So I can
Yeah.
start
You're starting to be able to have clarity around
yeah, a little
those
bit.
sounds or those,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so therefore, as you said, like, it's very likely we're going to get off this one episode, 10 episodes, 20 episodes and go, what did I just say? Or why did I say that? Or I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that, or we shouldn't have interviewed that person, or, whatever it is, I'm sure these thoughts are going to come in.
Yeah.
But I think it's just remembering that this is to give fuel to that light,
Mm.
and it it's not to be attached on an outcome.
Yeah, and it's an exercise in courage, I think, as well. It's like
Absolutely.
I think those kinds of opportunities I'm really learning about. For me at the moment, I'm really learning about doing hard things, and that I actually have a lot more capacity than I give myself credit for, and that we all do have a
Mm,
lot more capacity
mm,
to whatever that is, and not to be some overachieving person to achieve, but just that I am learning that I limit myself due to my own perspective of what I think that I can do, I'm not that person who could do that. So it's an exercise definitely in courage and taking those opportunities to do things. It's like that. I think I've seen on like social media people do these things like it's kind of like exposure therapy. It's like I
yeah.
can't remember what they call it, but it's like
I, I think
social anxiety somethings, and for example there was one where it was a girl on a hill. I just saw her yesterday, and there was a bunch of people behind her. She was like just sitting on a hill, and she was by herself, and she goes, here we go, and she just went, hey everyone, who she didn't know, it's my birthday today, I'm just letting you know. And then they were all so sweet who was around her and came and sang her happy birthday and stuff. But it's that thing of just challenging these ideas of what we limit ourselves to be. And I absolutely have limited myself to be XYZ. And this is a great exercise in challenging that and growing those muscles,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I have definitely worked that muscle in some areas, not in all
Yeah.
areas. Like, I definitely struggle still in what we were just talking about before we started the podcast, in the social communication. Like, if having to
Yeah.
say what that girl said, like
Yeah.
it's my birthday, would be my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But
She was so sweet.
but
Shout out to
starting a
that girl.
business, I'll do that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But so the other thing that I have had to work through, and COVID was a really big wake up call for that for me, is I was always doing things for an outcome. So it
Yes.
was always for, if it was a business, a successful business, but
Yeah.
that would come in the terms of usually financial. It means success. Doesn't mean that it would usually be determined by financial success. It would be determined by doing some kind of competition, trying to win a competition. It would be
Yeah.
through that achieving
Yeah.
lens.
Yeah.
Um, and really, again, for me over the 8 years, it's that I lost a lot of the experiences by focusing on the goal.
Mm.
And I missed a lot of the experiences by focusing on the goal. And so
Mm.
COVID took every goal away for me. And
Yeah.
I probably for the first 12 months was completely lost. Didn't
Yeah.
know what to do, didn't know how to function without a goal.
Mm.
Um, but working through that and still working through that, it's doing things that bring you joy or doing things that light
Yeah.
you up. And it's not to say that the things that I didn't do in the past didn't bring me joy, but I just was ingrained ultimately, or programmed or told as a child, whatever it was, that success is the measure of that,
Yeah.
or
And the
achieving
outcome
the outcome is the measure of,
indicates the
yeah, yeah,
success. Yeah.
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 Um, which is absolutely not true. I realize that
Mm.
now. And
Mm.
also, sometimes you can start something and it can take you in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And so you're like, yes, let's just say this podcast, we want, let's not even use this podcast. Let's just say I started I started a cleaning business, for example, which is
Yeah.
something I've actually thought about doing,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And I wanted to do it with my husband. I wanted to give my husband financial freedom. There was all these things, but it was all mainly linked to financial benefit.
Yeah.
But I could have started that business and we could have gone down that path. And it was actually just so he and I could have spent more time together. That might have been the sole reason for
Yeah.
it. Not
Yeah.
because it was going to give us financial reward, not because it was going to grow and be this successful business.
Yeah.
But if I had been focusing on starting that only for this financial reward, I'm missing the moment of having more quality time with my husband, So
Yeah. Yeah.
not to say that we still won't start a cleaning business,
Yeah.
but it's just I'm trying to let go of why.
Yeah.
Why it needs, if I have the idea, great, but don't get caught up on what it has to be.
Yeah. And you're having more clarity around that, are you, for when you do have your ideas? Because I know your ideas come thick and fast sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you have that sort of like your motivation, which I don't want to go too much because I'm going to talk to you on our next one where I'll interview you and ask you about your life and your
Mm-hmm.
experience and who you are. But yeah, I just wonder how your what you're doing to have that clarity around what now you're motivated to do something for. Like if an idea comes
Yeah.
in,
So yeah,
how
yeah.
you identify, how do you recognize, well, this is following my little flicker, or this is because I have a fear around not
Yeah.
having enough money,
Yeah,
or
yeah. And so I was actually going to say that as well, is that, so it's that achievement, but then it's also energetically
mm,
the energy of things. So this is what have changed, is that
mm,
um potentially I had a toxic, let's call it, energy in driving a lot of these things for success,
yeah,
because it was my self-worth that was measuring
mm,
it. If I have a successful business, if I win a competition, if I become the best at this, I
yeah,
will be insert
enough, valuable,
enough,
whatever.
better, a better person, So I think what I'm starting to look at is the fuel of why I'm wanting to do something. So the ideas, as you
Mm,
said, they come thick and fast and daily.
yeah,
To be honest, a little less in the last little while. But is it because I just genuinely want to do something for enjoyment, growth, learning, or is it because I feel threatened in some way?
yeah,
So, for example, the cleaning business. I've already tried to start a cleaning business.
yeah,
Surprise, surprise.
yeah,
Um, but that came at a point where we really needed money.
yeah,
We were like we didn't have a buffer. My husband, like, we ultimately jumped without a buffer, ultimately.
yeah,
And therefore there was a time pressure put on us. We had to kind of do everything now. There was this urgency. I guess that's another thing. So urgency, when there's an
yeah.
urgency to do something.
Which completely makes sense though financially when you've got kids and like
Yeah.
that it's a very valid reason. But yes, go on.
Yeah. Yes, totally. It's a reason. It is a reason, but okay, let's not use a cleaning business, because then that's
Are you essentially going to say, does the fear though drive you out of actually seeing what opportunities could happen in a different way because you are forcing something rather than
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
kind of taking time, doing a routine, and
Yeah.
being able to listen. Is that kind of what you were?
So, I need to give a better example, I think. But let's just say this is something that would have happened in the past, right? Is I hear of an acquaintance or a colleague, and they're doing something like they won a competition, and then there would
Yeah,
be like, oh, I need to win a competition. Let's go look for a competition. And that's out of feeling less than, right?
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know that at the time.
yeah, yeah,
But it was like, oh, like you get hit with like, oh, I'm not why they've done that and I haven't done that. I better go and do that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm trying, well, one, I'm noticing more when that happens.
Mm,
And I'm not trying to let that be the thing. Sure, I could still go do that, but it's not coming out of a
yeah.
response of less than
I
feeling.
must do, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I also must do that to then be
Yeah. And so
XYZ. Yeah,
then urgency, I think, is
yeah,
another one that I'm
yeah,
trying to shift. It's still hard because even with
yeah.
this, I think I've put urgency on you a
Yeah,
little
you
bit.
have. But then I can also, delay. So
Yeah.
meeting in the middle is good
Yeah.
too.
And
Yeah.
so, and then there's also this point of still
Mm,
doing the thing. So
mm,
as long as the momentum goes forward, um, and so, in the past, if I had an idea to get it from start to finish, it could happen very, very quickly, too quickly, probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're the only sort of things that I'm using now as signs that those ideas probably aren't the ideas to grab onto.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, then there's just the addiction to ideas. I think there's just, and that's why I'm saying I don't know if there's other stuff going on for me that maybe are causing all of those hundreds of ideas as well.
mm.
But this one is definitely something that feels solid and is still bringing joy and is
Yeah.
still waking
And
me
at
up.
the end of the day, also, we're getting to like spend time together, you and me. We're in different states now. We
Totally.
never see each other, so that's part of it too. Is that selfishly we're just wanting to have, not selfishly, but
Well, the
we just
idea of
wanted
this
to enjoy it,
podcast is totally also with
spending time.
yeah,
Yeah,
spending locked in time. And I've actually thought about that a lot too, because I'm like, why is this makes it like, yes, I can lock it in and speak to you, but then being able to speak to a friend, like I can't make that commitment in the same way on a weekly basis.
yeah. I feel like there's some level of kind of. So I've got a million things to do right now,
Yeah.
right? And so if we were just sort of catching up and locking in a time to catch up, I'd be like, well, I've got to do these things. So I can't talk for, or maybe I'll do a 15-minute chat, because
Mm-hmm.
I have priorities of things that need to be done. And then when you put like a work frame or like a project frame around what the task you're doing, where you go, well, you've got to prioritize that over doing, going shopping and getting stuff for the, for dinner or whatever, you kind of, I think it's just more weight.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
feel like you can sacrifice just catch up time because
Totally.
there's nothing to sort out, nothing to achieve.
Yeah.
When of course there is, it's like actually just spending time with your loved friend.
Yeah.
But
I know we just add more weight over it because of the busyness of life or
yeah, because you've always got 1,000 fucking things to do.
yeah,
Like,
I
who
know.
doesn't?
I know. So
Oh,
look, I recommend guys, if you just want to catch up with a friend, just start a
yeah.
podcast.
Call, yeah, like a 10-person podcast because you want to see all your friends at
Oh,
once. Like, that'd be great too. But yeah, I think essentially we're here to have conversation and follow that curiosity and that interest and that bliss and not attach anything to it.
mm,
And if you happen to come along or you accidentally press on the wrong button and you find yourself here, stick around for a minute or so, and
yeah,
then
just
you
give
can
us a
decide.
chance. Give us
Yeah.
a chance at least, and then make up your mind.
Yeah.
I think like, and one like we keep talking about curiosity. Totally is definitely the other is a value of this podcast, but I think the other quality that you and I have, because I know people have said this to us separately, is the directness of questioning,
Mm.
and wanting to know the things that you sort of touched on it in the beginning, is that wanting to know the things that you wouldn't usually tell someone, and
Yeah.
that can be the Australian way. It could be this more submissive way. I don't know what it is necessarily. I think it's a bit the Australian way. But like, we also want to be able to put someone in front of us and just blah,
Yeah.
say whatever question comes. And
Yeah.
also finding guests that are comfortable with that too.
That's right. And if you are someone who is not very good at small talk and isn't really into sport, you'll probably enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, is that I am terribly, get me at a school pickup zone. I just want to hide in my car because of the chit chat that comes at a
Yeah.
school zone, or accidentally bumping into someone in the shopping center where you can't have a conversation. Again, I want to hide from you. If you want to hide from people in the shopping center because of the boring conversation that you might
Maybe
have
that's
about
the
things.
tagline. No small talk included.
Yeah, something like that. Because I really value and respect those people who are good at small talk, because it's a much needed thing. You don't need to go into your divorce and all of the things in the supermarket. If you do, props to you as well.
Yes.
But there's a time and a place, and I'm just not very gifted at that. I've gotten better. I've gotten better, but it's always a bit of an anxious.
Yeah,
It's a bit of an anxious fluster.
absolutely.
I probably say too much. I ask too many excited questions that are boring, but in an excitable way, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be energetic about this conversation and be really
I
interested.
never know when to leave. That's my problem, is I can start the conversation, but I never know when to exit.
I feel a certain level of pride if I'm able to wrap up a conversation in a kind of really, and then it's going to be on Tuesday, kind of, and we walk away. I'm like, I
that was
that one.
and that's I always feel like I haven't done it, because I always sort of exit awkwardly.
Yeah, not great. We're both not great at that, I think.
Which is what we love about each other and our friends, and like, we can just be who we want to be, and this will be that place. And definitely, if you struggle with small talk, you're in the right company. So
that's it. We hope you stick around for the big talk.
Yes. So we will start off by interviewing each other, just so we can, get to know who you're actually hearing and talking to. So next session it will be me, and then I will be interviewing Gemma.
That's it.
So this is when, like, I don't know how to segue us out of it.
We don't know to wrap it up. You can.
So do we say bye? Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye.